Vincent does the production design for the pirate comedy Our Flag Means Death. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I wanted to ask you, to start off, if I ever wanted to make a pirate ship, what do I need to make sure I get right?
You need a really big workshop to build it in, for starters. And then you need a whole lot of adaptable carpenters who've never built a pirate ship before to believe everything you tell them. And I think that's probably exactly what Stede Bonnet did. He managed to convince somebody to do something outrageous, and they did it for him. So I see myself as filling somewhat of that part of the story myself.
Oh, that's cool. And yeah, I guess like you're right. You need to make sure you got a big enough workshop, but you've also got to make sure you got a plan to get it out of the workshop.
Funny you should say that.
Yeah.
We built this pirate ship set as one giant pirate ship, and the Spanish Galleon's really massive, really wide. Our one was 160 feet long, but we broke it into 5 pieces, thinking that it would be much easier to manage. But none of those pieces really were very good at fitting out the doors of the studio, because they all had masts on, of course. So we spend a lot of time in one of the largest stages in Warner Brothers, wheeling these big buildings around and reconfiguring them and making way for new sets. So it was kind of like an amphibious Spanish Galleon, I guess.
Well, how did you get the masts out? Did you have to cut them off or put them back on, or?
Exactly. So yeah, so it's all of this. It's kind of complicated Lego style of set building. You know, not only do you want to try and make it look appropriate for the show, but you also need it to be sort of somewhat functional in the shooting sense. So, you know, crew access and make it durable so that, you know, it'll suffer the rigors of a couple of hundred people every day tramping all over it.
Wow.
So function, even though this ship never sets sail on the water, it still has a lot of function built into its design.
Wow. Well, when we see a different ship on the show, have you made a different ship, or are you just redecorating the same one?
Well, because we spend quite a bit of the money up front building Stede's ideal galleon, we had to get a little creative with some of our other associated ships. And during the course of the season, I think we have 5 different ships that we visit. And it costed a lot of money to build a pirate ship. So HBO were quite willing to build, you know, take a plunge and build this wonderful, great big set. And then everything that came after that was an elaborate redress of the of Stede's ship. So with a little bit of trickery and some late nights turning around that one ship, we managed to turn it into 5 different places.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like you've just bought it's like the day after buying your pirate ship. You can't, like, we just got you one. We can't get you another one. We can't play with the one we just got you.
That's right. And it's got 6 different layers of paint on it.
Wow.
Because, of course, you know, paint is the easiest thing to change. So you'd think.
Yeah.
If only we could arrange everything in shooting order so that, you know, at least when we know that we have to go back to the first version, we can sort of peel back 3 layers of paint and no.
So you had to go back and forward between the ships.
Backwards and forwards. It's never a sensible process.
Yeah. And is that the nature of it being television rather than a film? Like, you know, where like different scripts come in throughout the course of the season?
Absolutely. And, you know, and in particular with Our Flag Means Death, the the writing's still being kind of thought about even before it's written. We're shooting the first block of episodes, and the writers are getting more and more excited, and the new ideas are just constantly kind of cascading in. So you have to be ready to kind of forget all your previous plans and adapt to the new ones that are coming in, because actually that's the only way you can grow a story like this, is to accept ideas from different creative corners of the project. And by the time you get to episode 10, you've got something pretty spectacular.
Wow. What you talked about how, like, even though it didn't hit the high seas, the ship has some real functionality to it. What's your favorite feature of the pirate ship?
I think it would have to be the airbags. I mean, I love the aesthetics of Stede's pirate ship, and I sort of appreciate that, that everything that fits on screen wants to look like a character in the show, but actually some of the functional elements that are built into the design, the things that you don't really notice, are some of the most successful, like the fact that we had a practical fireplace on the set, or that the entire set was built on these articulating airbags, which constantly rocked for 12 hours a day. Our cast is sort of standing on this unstable set that's just swaying backwards and forwards, and then the background's moving as well. So if you weren't a sailor to start with, after 5 months in the studio, you had pretty good sea legs.
Yeah. Do people get a bit disorientated or seasick being on this?
For sure.
Yeah. How did you have to be on it when it was rocking?
No, I'm not very good on boats, so I stayed away.
What I love it. You're not great on boats, but you had to build this epic pirate ship for the set of for the battle. I love it.
Might be part of the reason why we're in a dry studio.
Yeah. Oh, very, very good. What about some of the other sets you had to do? What was the biggest sort of challenge outside of the pirate ship for you to have to approach?
Well, because we spent most of our kind of budget, I guess, building Stede's environment, the rest of the show had to sort of present itself in spontaneous opportunity in a lot of ways. We would be writing in tandem, the writers would be writing in tandem with the way that the show was creating itself and how the characters were developing. And there was a bit of the necessity of having a small budget drove us out to find these really interesting Los Angeles locations, which brought a whole kind of spontaneous berserk aesthetic to the show as well. So we found some ridiculous looking architecture for the Pirates Republic, and then just lent into that kind of as a weird building made out of river boulders, so that everything that then came about with the story of Spanish Jackie and Pirates Republic, and that how what pirates would do when they built a little town by themselves under the influence of kind of piratey mayhem. And this one location that we found had a lot of bottle walls, 1960s style kind of adobe bottle wall architecture.
Wow.
And why not? I mean,
Yeah.
you're on an island with a whole lot of heavy drinking pirates. Somebody's got to build you a place to sleep. So why not a bottle wall town? Yeah. Anyway, the Pirates Republic was quite an interesting find. And then, that led us to kind of exploring places in Los Angeles that kind of offered a tropical solution for the Caribbean, and of course we're trying to shoot this in a desert, so we visited a lot of LA Arboretum, and we found these little pockets of sort of subtropical forests that we could do some very select shooting in around, and I think that also added a flavour to the theatrical nature of the show, that meant that we were forced to keep honest with a lot of the cinematography, because there wasn't opportunity to fly over the Caribbean islands in the ocean and see these typical grand environments that you would expect on a pirate show shot in the tropics. So in some ways, out of necessity was born an aesthetic that influenced the comedy and kind of just packaged up a nice little manageable scale story.
Yeah, well, the aesthetic of the show is so lovely, and like so sort of it hits a particular tone, a particular style, almost like you're looking for a children's book or something like that. It's got this lovely, which I think must play well in the senses you were just talking about, where the framing is very specific. So as long as that rectangle, like you can sort of like focus in on the rectangle that works, but everything within that frame needs to look perfect, like for this show.
It needs to serve the story.
Yes.
And if you have two brilliant performances, but two people sort of waxing lyrical off each other, doing a little bit of theatre sports and ad-libbing, you don't want to break from that amazing performance. So it's important to maybe not even consider your background as having to be fancy and over the top all the time. Perhaps in situations like that, it's really nice to just play it down, find a beautifully simple backdrop to play out some amazing performance. And there's plenty of opportunities to go over the top and over design your world if you want to, if there's really nothing else that the story's going to bring. So I like to think that for Our Flag Means Death, we would pick our opportunities to show off something extraordinary. Maybe you get one big cinematic reveal of Stede's ship, and then the rest of the time it's almost like tableaus or a theatre backdrop.
Oh, it's good way of describing it. Yeah, like I guess the role of a production designer, from what you're just saying, is just as much what you put in the set as what you might take out or not put in the set. Yeah.
It's a little like watercolor painting, I guess, in that respect.
Yeah.
You have to leave a wee bit to the imagination, and also you have to let performances breathe without being cluttered by other stuff.
Yeah. Can you think of something you really liked that was in the set that you decided to take out because you didn't want it to distract?
To begin with, we heavily overdressed Stede's cabin, like to the point where it was a cabinet of curiosities, and it was just like it was a Marrakesh market or something. The floors were covered 5 layers deep with rugs and taxidermy and whatnot. We had stuff dripping off the ceiling, and it had a really nice tone to it. But also, I think the reason why it didn't work is because it was just too much. It was too much to spend so many pages in that environment. For those reasons, we needed to allow some performance to breathe. And, you can do that in the case of Stede's by doing big abstract panels of colour, or having an opportunity to draw a drape, and then then you've got a nice clean background to play against.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the bamboozlement of that set, the first time we dressed it, was an eye-opener for us, and a good education into what is important in a story and what's kind of overkill.
It's interesting. Like, what do you find the most fun? What do you think is the most funny scene for you on the show?
I really love the juxtaposition of Stede and his cohorts dressed in white and walking into the Pirates Republic, and just even the comedy for the extras who'd shown up that day and got covered in dirt and were told maybe a couple of things about what was happening, but really knew nothing. And then Rhys Darby's performance walking onto set, and everybody, I think, in front of the camera and behind the camera had trouble trying to hold their laughter in. And I think there have been many a take that have been ruined by people giggling over the top.
Yeah. You talked about the importance of sort of sometimes not overcrowding things and making choices in what makes a frame or not. Stede has a slightly different approach. In the flag making contest, he found it hard to pick just one, so he put them all up on the ship. Did you work on those flags?
I did with our fabulous props master, Scott McGuinness, and we went through a few versions of what you might typically do, reading the written word from the script and doing some beautiful textile development. But with all of these things, to inject a little bit more human nature into the world and into these handicrafts in particular, the soft finishing master who was working on those had to kind of unravel all the things she'd ever really learned about kind of how you stitch a cat onto a piece of fabric. Not that she'd probably ever done that, but we had that's one prop that is, I guess, a good example of how, as prop makers and as storytellers, you kind of need to kind of pull back on what you think you know. And even as an architect, we have draftspeople who kind of, they know how to build a world one way, which is the conventional, and then production designer's role is to sort of snap them out of that and give it back some humanity, which is, human nature is chaos, and craft is chaotic, and the art of making art should be kind of chaotic as well. So breaking down all of those years of learning and getting people to start again is a really tricky thing to be able to do. So drawing naive style, when you've got a graphics artist who's been trained and been working for 20 years drawing immaculately, that's a bit of an art form. Just trying to take them back to a believable, naive place. And in fact, if you delve into the character development of each one of these amazing characters in the show, you realise that they have some personality and magic that they can bring to the story, but they also have individual quirks, and to see that in their cooking or their music making or their craft making, you really connect with the human being behind the character.
Yeah. A few quick questions, Ralph. First one, if you had to pick a favorite flag, what was your favorite?
My favorite flag is the skull spewing buttons.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Also, what was it like sitting up late at night designing tattoos?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to know the makeup designer on the show very well, and it was a really nice opportunity for us to, collaborate on some visual element of the show, like really closely.
Yeah. What was your favorite tattoo on Blackbeard?
My favorite tattoo on Blackbeard would have to be Taika Waititi's tattoos that he's already got.
Oh, the ones he already has. There you go. Nancy's favorite was the dagger you designed.
All right. Yes,
There
I had
you
to
go.
use my left hand for that.
Oh, there you go.
I'm telling you a lie. I had to use my right hand because I'm already left-handed.
Oh, okay. The non-dominant hand, right? And finally, just if you in a couple of words had to say, what is the most special thing about Our Flag Means Death?
The fact that we even did it was the most special thing about it. I mean, you couldn't really imagine what it was going to be reading the words on the page. Yeah. It wasn't until you got all the carpenters together and the painters and the story writers and then the cast, and then you lit it, and then you talked with the cinematographer about the endless potential coverage for the show. The actual making of the show, to me, is more important. The byproduct of having a good time is making a really lovely show for everyone else to watch. So
yeah,
I'm satisfied in the process.
Well, that's great. And Ra, thanks so much for talking with us today. I forgot to mention, you are an Oscar-nominated production designer. You were nominated for Jojo Rabbit, which won Taika an Oscar for writing, and you also did the production design on The Hobbit that got an Oscar nomination. So congratulations on those from the past couple of years. And we wish you all the best of luck for the Emmy Awards for Our Flag Means Death. To see whether that pirate ship can sail in to the Emmys contention this year. People watching this interview can go to our awards website, goldderby.com, and make your own awards predictions. Ra, thanks so much for chatting with us this morning, afternoon. We're in different time zones, but whatever it is, hope you're having a good one.
Amazing, Matt. Thank you.